Please join me in welcoming Maria and Rucka.
And we're still waiting to go live, or are we live? We're live. Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we are excited to be here live in person for the first ever live episode of the Daily Objective. Thank you, sir. So obviously we come from many different locations to be here for this week, many walks of life, many different backgrounds. But one thing we all have in common that brings us here today is that we all watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. In West Philadelphia. Yeah. So if you didn't see the news, we're going to tell you all about it. Please, let's welcome my co-hostess, a favorite of yours and mine. It's Maria.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you in 3D. I'm used to seeing you in two-dimensional, and it's great to see people in person.
It is pretty surreal. It's almost like they probably don't even think we can see them, and almost like vice versa. I'm not even sure. We're just so used to Zooming all the time. Good to be back in person, but that's a whole nother episode. In the Oscars last night, Chris Rock was, roasting the crowd as he tends to do, as the host of the Oscars usually does, and Will Smith and his wife were sitting close to the front, close to the stage. Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett, was completely shaven bald, and Chris Rock said something like, "I love you, can't wait to see G.I. Jane 2. And at first it looked like Will Smith and his wife were laughing, and then Will Smith got up, walked over, and actually slapped Chris Rock in the face. Went back and sat down, and Chris Rock was like, "Whoa, I just got the shit smacked out of me." And Will Smith said, "You keep my wife's name out of your mouth."
Beep, beep, beep. There were a few
M-effer, he said. Mother effer, was it?
Yeah.
Some seriously unsavory language took place on the Oscars. So, Chris Rock, he was like, it was just a G.I. Jane joke, It's like... So anyway, that happened. Obviously, as you can imagine, in the age of Twitter and the internets, it broke the internet. It was everywhere. It will live on for many, many generations. No, we're not ready for participation, but we'll get to all of you. So let's talk about this. Can we start trying to find the positive in this, if there is anything? Can you see anything positive about this, about what Will Smith did?
Well, first, I think it's important to note that she wasn't just shaved bald. She admitted in an interview about a month ago that she had alopecia. So I think that exacerbated the joke. The joke wasn't just about her appearance that night. It was taken unfavorably by her and Will Smith because of this condition that she had. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it was taken unfavorably by Will Smith, for sure. We don't know if her feelings were hurt or not. But it was obviously a delicate subject, but also it's like, what do? You in many cases, you can joke with somebody who's sick.
No, but you don't think he looked at her, saw that she was not laughing? Because I think he laughed at first, and then he clocked her, and she was very serious, and that's when he went up on stage.
So that's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any positives? I think the positive that comes out of it is that if you're a celebrity, don't slap someone on live TV. He probably should have just shouted if he wanted to defend his dignity and his wife's dignity. I don't think the slap was necessary. He could have just shouted what he shouted, like, "Don't you effing speak about my wife like that." If he felt compulsed in the moment and he couldn't wait until they went backstage, I don't know what sort of statement he was maybe trying to make. But yeah, probably don't slap your co-host on live television during the biggest awards show in the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like it might have been taken as a joke if he just shouted it, like he was playing into it. But it would have been disruptive and inappropriate. But light years not as bad as actually assaulting. So I guess one positive aspect of this is just the way that Chris Rock handled it. It was it was classy. It was inspiring. I mean, the guy's a pro. Anyone who's been on stage. Or even not been on stage can appreciate that he kept going and powered through it. as we're doing this week, you know, like Nikos is dealing with COVID-19 at the moment and won't be able to join us until later in the week. So we're powering through this, and so are all of you. But back to Will Smith. Okay, there's really nothing good about what he did. Some of the internet, some people are saying, well, he's defending his woman, he's defending his values, he's defending her honor, he doesn't want her insulted, like what's he, you know, it's not ideal, but he did something that he felt was right in defending her honor, something like that. I mean, it's not exactly, I don't know if it holds up in court.
Probably not, but
Yeah.
no, I don't even think that it holds up in this court.
Oh.
I think sometimes, so I think the initial reaction of anyone defending themselves is always a positive one. Oh yeah, you know, that guy went and defended himself, especially when we're talking about Oscars and Hollywood and everyone's smiles and, you know, maybe being a little bit fake. And here you have Will Smith kind of really just going at it. So I think the initial reaction is always like, oh yeah, you should definitely stand up for yourself, regardless of the context, even if Chris Rock's your friend, even if you're at this high profile event. But I think that initial reaction, or at least that was my initial reaction, I was sort of maybe like, oh yeah, good for you. But then, yeah, I just sort of realized definitely shouldn't have initiated force.
Wow, okay, hold on. We're not gonna brush past this.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but they're such a public couple. They have spoken about issues in their marriage. They have spoken openly about her indiscretion in the past. And it almost feels like he has allowed people to disrespect him in ways that are maybe more significant than what Chris Rock said on stage. It was a joke. Everyone gets roasted at the Oscars. You could have just brushed it off. You know, there were many people that have been insulted previously and they didn't really do anything about it. And rightfully so, you know, you can't just go out punching anyone that says something bad about you. But yeah, I don't know, I just kind of almost felt like it was maybe even a little bit hypocritical coming from Will Smith, and considering the profile of them as a couple and things that they've admitted to in interviews, I almost felt like maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so one point I want to just mention is like what if it wasn't, like what if she was in chemotherapy and that's why she was bald? Even in that context, I think his joke might be appropriate. I mean, it's like you're lightening the mood, you're with, you know, you're with friends, you're with longtime friends, and I could sort of see it even in that context being appropriate for a black tie event. But also, yeah, like I think you're hinting at, Will Smith and his wife have discussed publicly how she had an affair at one point, or they agreed to it. It's sort of a semi-open marriage, something like that. Yeah, there's definitely plenty of material to make fun of Will Smith for here, but also at the same time, you know, we don't really know everything. We don't know what he's done in the last 30 years, like, of their marriage or whatever. Like, there's a lot we don't know, and it's hard to judge people. I mean, I'll judge them when I've been married for God knows how long and raised a couple of adult kids, you know? So, I mean, I tend to kind of leave that part of it alone, as much as it's got so much potential. But I'm really curious about your initial reaction, because that to me, I mean, it's honest, you know? We don't judge feelings, do we? We explore them, and then we ask, like, are these feelings, do they hold up? So your feeling initially was, oh, good. Like, get them, show them. Like, yeah, referring to Will punching Chris Rock. Yeah, don't let him talk about your wife that way. Is that your initial?
Maybe a little bit. It was probably coming from the wrong premises. I don't actually know, why I rejoiced at first. Or maybe I just wanted a bit of excitement from the Oscars. They've been having a really bad time in the past couple of years. No, I'm joking. This is not a way to lift a profile of an event. I think maybe, I didn't actually know what Chris Rock said. I first saw the slap, but I thought, wow, must have been something really serious for that to have happened on live television. You know, these are professional people. They've learned to keep their emotions to themselves. They have often been provoked by interviewees, you know, fans, paparazzi, and, you know, this is where you lose it, like at this type of event. That was surprising. And that maybe for me was kind of like, oh, wow, cool, good for you. Like, something horrible must have happened for you to have done that. But then, as I read the article, I realized that maybe this was really unwarranted. And yeah, downright wrong. And
Yeah, but I mean, I would even challenge like it came from a wrong premise per se. Maybe like when you said that your initial glee at the sight of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock was like probably coming from the wrong premise. Maybe it's coming from a good sort of place, but obviously a misapplied, misintegrated, inappropriate. Because, you know, there are many contexts when a man should, you know, slap another man. Maybe a punch would be a little bit more masculine in many cases, but not for words, you know? I don't think there's ever a time to respond to words with violence. Your wife is being disrespected. You, I guess, maybe tell the guy to take a hike, you know, and maybe apologize to her for what she was just heard. I mean, that's kind of the gentlemanly, classy thing to do. So the fact that this was Will Smith is just like the most tragic thing of all. Like Will Smith, like the most universally beloved, probably highest paid actor, if not this year, then in the last 10 years, 20 years, just everybody on earth. Like I said, everyone loves from Fresh Prince, the music and onward. He just seemed like the guy who just really got it right and was able to handle fame, was able to handle success and immense wealth and all of these things in such a classy and well-composed kind of way. So the fact that he would break a, you know, 75-year tradition or whatever it is of the Oscars by just walking onto the stage and slapping the host.
well, maybe it's because he's Will Smith that he can get away with something like that. Because someone who's had a rowdy reputation in the past maybe would not have allowed themselves. And Will Smith, he's sort of protected maybe by this image that he has, by the adoration of the public. And maybe that's why he felt, well, people will stand behind me, you know, for defending, you know, my wife's honor, my honor. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's possible. I mean, it's possible. He's been, people have been heaping praise on him for such a big part of his life at this point that maybe in his mind he started to feel like he is Jesus, which brings us to his acceptance speech. So later in the evening, Will Smith won Best Actor, which is a heck of a prize. You know, this was not, you know, Best Soundtrack in a documentary. Nothing against that, by the way. If you win that Oscar, congratulations. But he won Best Actor. And I think it's his first Oscar ever. So after all these years, after all his many great acting performances and presumably nominations, he finally wins Best Actor. He finally wins his first Oscar. And of course, he had to kind of taint the situation with his behavior. So he gave his acceptance speech, Will did. And he spent about 5 minutes sort of talking about how, what was it? Did you happen to catch his?
no, but I know he apologized in the speech.
Well, like 4 minutes in, but like for the first 4 minutes are like, God chose me to handle some serious things lately, and I am just so honored to be able to protect my co-star, the actresses I'm working with, and this and that, and love makes you do crazy things sometimes, and just like, it's sort of like when I say apologizing, meaning like downplaying the severity of something,
Yeah.
like kind of like, yeah, this was not great, but you know, let's face it, I was using some kind of language that would raise our eyebrows at the Ayn Rand Center UK, kind of like, you know, because it was done for love, because it was done for, you know, the others, then it's sort of all is forgiven. And maybe this is really a bit of armchair philosophizing and psychologizing, but I'm going to say it anyway. Maybe the fact that he is indulging in so much mystical babble in his head is not unrelated to the fact that when in that moment he resorted to force.
As in, he genuinely felt like some higher power compelled him to...
Ish, just like he was irrational, you know? He was
Yeah.
not thinking rationally, and people have been heaping praise on him for so long. I mean, when you're a famous actor, especially that famous, nobody treats you like they expect you to, you know,
Yeah.
to behave properly, like, almost.
Maybe him and Jada had a fight earlier on, and he's like, well, I better redeem myself. This is a good opportunity to do it. No, this is...
Yeah.
I'm being, yeah.
I mean, hey,
But who knows?
there's a lot we don't know.
But here's another question. How do you think, if at all, this might change the Oscars? Because Oscars is famous for the presenter is always a funny guy or a funny girl, roasting the, kind of humbling the celebrities there by making fun of them. How do you think that might be affected in the future?
It's a good question. I mean, it seems like for years the Oscars have been adjusting itself to these changing, ever-changing and fast-changing social norms. So, they announced, I think now, in order to be nominated, a movie needs to meet a certain diversity quota. That's a huge change. And now that a host has been punched, it was only a matter of time, I think, before a comedian host got the show in trouble. You would not assume it would be a nominee that punches him, or that anyone would punch him. It'll be interesting to see, but it sort of speaks to a larger. It speaks to sort of an abstraction for what I think you're asking about, which is like what do these institutions even mean as time passes? The Oscars is like something that brought us all together in the culture for the last 7,500 years, however long it's been. A lot of things, a lot of institutions, sort of social things that a lot of us recognize and participate in have been sort of coming undone. I mean, I'm reminded of January 6th as like a really grotesque example of things that everyone kind of assumed would never be tampered with or sort of being just blatantly disrespected. But of course, I mean, there's riots and violence and another example is just like the presidency becoming sillier and sillier with each passing president. It seems so like a combination of cancel culture, and also people just not respecting anything in the past, even if they're not looking to cancel it, but just not really appreciating it, not having any reverence for anything good from the past. Just this sort of tendency to assume that just kind of everything from before us is not as good as what's happening right now. It seems to be changing things. So yeah. That's how the Oscars are going to change. What do the Oscars even mean anymore after a while? And plus, the internet, TikTok is bigger than Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure.
It is. YouTube is probably bigger than Hollywood. So, yeah, who even watches the Oscars? I hate to say it. I only know about this because of this slap. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it will be interesting to see for me, it's more like how the hosting of the Oscars might change, if at all, whether it will become more timid or in which case I think the Oscars will completely sort of obliterate itself in a couple of years' time. Because if you don't have a charismatic, funny presenter on stage, even if the jokes are sometimes a little bit foul, I mean, that's kind of what the Oscars really hangs on. I mean, yes, good-looking people wearing nice dresses, but I almost feel like no one even cares about the red carpet anymore. It used to be a big thing in fashion. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it still is.
I don't know either. I mean, did the Oscars always have a funny host? Or, because I don't know what was happening. Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so we went from a very sort of conservative, like very mild-mannered culture, at least in terms of what was allowed on TV. We went from that to just like outlandish Chris Rock hosting the Oscars quite a few times and kind of pushing the boundaries of good taste, to the point where now actually the host is getting slapped in the face by one of the actors. So somebody tweeted like, this is the inevitable result of, quote, speech is violence. Some years ago, somebody punched Richard Spencer in the face. He's like an outspoken white nationalist. And of course, many people said, look, I don't support violence, but yeah, that guy can get punched in the face. And I think the objectivists, certainly like the Ayn Rand Institute, and there was no ARC at that point, I don't think, but people who agree with Ayn Rand often said, if you allow violence as a response to speech, all bets are off. If you cannot speak freely, then you cannot think freely. You are not living as a human being. And of course, since then we've seen various instances of vandalism and violence and all types of outlandish behavior that are violent. And this does seem like kind of a poetic sort of climax in a way, even though it's just one guy slapping one other guy, but because of what they represent in the culture, it does seem climactic. But I'm scared to say like there could be more of this coming. It does feel to me. So my response to this, not that I'm like comparing my emotional response to yours because I don't think we can judge emotions. But my response to this is like immediately like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel safe. I don't feel like the world is a place that's hospitable to rational people. So I do not want to live in a world where we need to deal with each other by force.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we open now?
Well, we can in just yeah, you know, why not? Let's jump to that. Do we have any super chats? Is Razi gonna? Okay.
We actually have a bunch of super chats.
Oh dear. Okay.
The
Awesome.
first one is from the person who invented super chatting while you're in the audience, George. He says Will Smith, being a comedian himself, should be first to understand the symbolism of physically attacking someone for a joke.
Okay, I don't mean to be argumentative, but like Will Smith is a comedian. When's the last time he did comedy? Okay, but he did a sitcom. He's a comedian. Yeah. He's also a rapper technically, but it's been like 40 years. Sorry to pick on you. Thank you, George.
We have a non-super chat, but from Jason Rhines, who hosts the Friday TDO deep dive episodes. We have a few comments from him. The first one, he says, Will Smith spoiled what should have been the crowning achievement of a career of excellence and his reputation as a positive role model.
Yeah, like the fact it was Will Smith and he's finally getting his Oscar.
Yeah. Do you think he thought he wouldn't win? No, I'm joking. I don't think he thought in the moment.
Yeah,
he was, yeah.
This
he
was not
just acted
premeditated.
erratically, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, he probably assumed he's not going to win just because he's so used to not winning the Oscars after so many nominations or so many years. Did Jason have another comment, or
Yes.
do you have another comment?
He also says it's tragic, inexcusable, and he seems to be cracking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Will Smith, he was like all of ours, you know? Will Smith was all of ours. Like, everybody loved Will Smith. Is there anyone else like that? Like, I can't think of anyone. You don't love Will Smith?
I do.
Oh, everybody loves Will Smith. So, yeah. Everybody hated Chris. That was the show, Chris Rock. It was like the Wonder Years, but Chris Rock's childhood. You guys had that show here? All right, I'm from America.
We have family got South Park here, so something's transferred.
We also have a super chat from Sammy is bored again, who sends a unicorn. And Jonathan Honig says, Rucka's Nuckas embrace a malevolent universe. And then later, with another super chat, he says, see Dr. Peikoff's My 30 Years with Ayn Rand, an intellectual memoir for the story about the 1974 Oscars, in which Rand responded to a streaker on TV, free on ARI's website.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Peikoff.
Sorry, so something happened in the 1974 Oscars that he's alluding to?
There was a streaker, if I'm correct.
Okay.
A guy ran naked across the stage. What would you give to go back to such a simple time, huh?
We also have a super chat from Ed and a super chat from Robert, who is also in the audience. And he says, take my money.
Gladly.
YouTube wouldn't take my money. It wouldn't take my foreign currency. I had to cheat and go through my cell phone. My real question was, don't you believe that fighting words are a thing? Is there anything I could say about your girlfriend or your mother or whoever that would be provocation? Because I think there is.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I don't think people at home heard Robert, but the question was like, aren't there words that can be considered fighting words that are considered provocation? So let's say there was an assault, and then the police is like, okay, then what happened? And then what happened? And the guy was like in the other guy's face, insulting, someone in his family or his wife or his kids, and finally the guy punched him. So there is, I think, a legal category for that. That is different from a completely unprovoked assault. That is a different category, just like with murder. A murder under those conditions versus just premeditated going out and killing somebody. So.
No, but by which standard are we deciding provocative or unprovocative language?
In the way that one is provocative and the other is not.
No, but wait, Will Smith would argue to the policeman, like what he said was like the threat, above the threshold of my patience. Like that is something that, but again, like would that suffice? or?
It's a good question, you know, because like Will Smith might say if he were defending himself, like to say that on national TV is like, yeah, it's kind of a mild, tame joke, but to say it and it's this much infuriating and it's to a global audience, like, yeah, that is like getting in my face and edging me on. So, you know, like we're talking about, we don't judge feelings. I guess like I'm not you know, I try not to judge Will Smith's anger. I think he's got a lot in the bank in terms of class and composure. But yeah, so I guess there is sort of an aspect to this that needs to be acknowledged, which is that he was under duress, is the word, maybe? No, duress is like when you're being forced.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not being forced, but he was under stress.
Yeah, and they don't change the law for that, but the cops will lessen the sentence or look the other way or massage how the justice is done. I'm not saying the law needs to be changed, and it's usually not. But morally, is there a point?
Well, again, they can't hear you at home, but I don't think, unless they hear you by the computer. But I think legally these are different categories. So you're guilty, you're going to get punished, but maybe 3 months for premeditatedly going out and beating up somebody, and maybe just 1 month if they were in your face or anyway, yeah.
They usually don't even put me in jail.
Nice.
We have a few more super chats. Apollo Zeus says, "Wish I was there." George says, "What does the choice of slap instead of punch say?" And Zalmi says, "Testing, testing."
Thanks, Almi. Yeah. What do you think of the slap?
Well, I did think about that. I don't know if he even sort of realized. I think he just went for it. I felt like he stood a bit far from Chris Rock. Like he didn't want to get too close and throw a punch, so he kind of just went for the safer option. Like your hand is further out if you slap someone. I don't know. I might be reading too much into body language, but I did also wonder why a slap? Or maybe he didn't want it to be too forceful, but he wanted to be forceful enough that it shocks his opponent, so to speak.
It's kind of a power move, you know?
Yeah?
Yeah. In a way, it's not. You're not punching. Like you're not saying I'm going to hurt you. It's more like you're.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse my language. You're a bitch, is what he told him.
Okay, fair enough. Is that why they call it a pimp slap?
A pimp slap or a bitch slap, yeah. So this actually brings us to an aspect of this that I think, people are going to talk about. They're going to look at is, we do live in a world where individuals are put in boxes. So like Will Smith is seen as part of the black community, and this guy over here is called white, and that guy is in the Asian community. And this does sort of have kind of a tragic aspect to it that I can see, so-called black leaders stressing or highlighting, which is is this how far we've come, that we're going on stage in the middle of a ceremony and slapping each other, we can't be more civilized than this? So it kind of it feeds into a stereotype of associating blacks with violence. So it's unfortunate. Again, Will Smith, just the utmost classiest guy, that he should do this. But so I guess, how do we look at this? Is that even worth thinking about at all, you think?
I wouldn't, but I think maybe being part of the black community, you're more worried about these things because you're more worried about how you might be perceived. I think they do have this. Some people in the black community might have this fear that they are perceived as violent. So something like that feeds their fear that other people would as well.
Yeah. So let's say if I'm black and I'm watching that, I might be thinking to myself, now when I'm out driving, the police is going to assume that I'm more likely to get violent.
No, I don't. Well, I don't think that. Yeah, no.
Oh.
I don't think they should feel that.
No.
Think that way, and I don't think that will be the case. That the police would be more suspicious of a black man running, jogging.
Yeah.
On a balmy evening. Is it legitimate that some people would feel that way in the black community? Yeah, maybe.
I think there's a major, gap between like middle class white people and black people in terms of like polling their opinions. They tend to agree with each other a lot on most things, but one thing they disagree about is police brutality. So a lot of blacks disagree with their white neighbors, both middle class. The whites think the cops are fine the way they are, and the blacks think the cops need to seriously lay off, or at least that they're doing something wrong. This is statistically a difference of opinion out there, and so I can see an event like this sort of raising some conversational topics like this. So hopefully the more of these types of topics about race come up, I hope it gets more people to think about something better than identity politics, and instead of strengthening the community, how about just really exploring individualism, really thinking about, is this how I want to spend my life? Do I want to really just choose my own values and pursue them? How about that?
I agree with that.
Okay, we've got a hand raised.
Razi,
I guess we can take a question from the audience. Lord Emperor, can we do that? All right.
So stepping back a moment, were you suggesting that maybe, for the lack of a better word, woke philosophy might have Will Smith might have felt he had permission to do that? He might have been impacted by all the victim.
So the question is, like, did woke philosophy make Will feel like he can do this? It's certainly possible, and I mean, like, woke philosophy is just like, I think, a current version of a lot of previous sort of philosophical beliefs that have been in the culture. So, I mean, there's a lot. Like, I was exploring the fact that he's so immersed in like mysticism, the way he was talking. I've heard he has dabbled in Scientology, maybe, but maybe that's just a rumor. But I mean, he's clearly not all there. So yeah, okay, woke philosophy. I mean, yeah, if assuming he takes it seriously, or assuming he's affected by a culture that takes so-called woke philosophy seriously, I could see it taking a toll on Will Smith. I could see it at a certain point affecting how he sees himself in the world and how he behaves, I suppose. But I also am interested in like the legitimate aspects of like people who believe that like blacks are unfairly treated by police, for instance. So I don't see that as a woke point of view, even though a lot of people, they want to lump that in with woke philosophy. So that might be a very legitimate thing that people believe, and kind of what's the relationship of that whole issue to something like this, I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, we will never know whether he would have slapped Chris Rock if we wouldn't have had a prevalent woke culture and cancel culture, so we won't know. But will people feel more compelled to slap people for an offensive comment, or less because we think it's bizarre? I mean, is this a good thing for beating woke culture, or a bad thing? Because who's going to be canceled, Will Smith or Chris Rock, as a result of all of this?
Yeah, it depends who gets there first, I guess, like who shows up first. So, I mean, there's a number of ways this can be looked at. One way, it's toxic masculinity, right, for Will Smith to be violent. It's toxic masculinity for him to do it on his wife's behalf. Like, what is she, his property? So that's one way that Will can be in trouble by that whole school of thought. In another way, Chris Rock is getting away with murder, making fun of a woman, making fun of a woman with a disease. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways. I mean,
damned if you will, you'll no. If
yeah.
you do, you'll be damned if you don't.
Yeah, and that to me is this social justice philosophy in a nutshell. Everybody's guilty. Nobody is safe. So I guess what are some of the effects that this can have in that respect? The thing that I brought up is just that like it's making violence in response to speech more prevalent and acceptable. I mean, sadly, but I mean, maybe it won't. Maybe when something like this happens, it makes people see how wrong it is.
Yeah.
So that's possible as well. It's tearing down institutions, which I don't talk that much about, but like in recent years, I'm really starting to think about like, not things we dogmatically embrace, but just things that have, that do mean something, that are valuable, such as the Oscars, for instance, a legitimate awards show. Seeing these things sort of destroyed and mocked and torn down, just like the statues being pulled down all across America and maybe elsewhere. We don't really pay attention elsewhere. In America, all we care about is us, and we need to change that. Help us change.
Got some questions from the audience.
Should we like have like someone
Razzie,
bring a
Razzie.
microphone to them, or should we just have them shout it? If you're busy. Okay, why don't you go ahead then?
Okay.
Keep it brief. We're out of time, almost out of time.
Okay. Yeah, so back to what we discussed earlier, because I was really curious. Do you think this incident that's Chris Rock being punched by Will Smith is like as memorable or more memorable than when it was Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift at the VMAs years ago?
Okay, question is, for anyone who didn't hear at home, is how does this event compare to Kanye West's shenanigan in the 2008 or 9 Video Music Awards on MTV when he snatched the microphone away from Taylor Swift during her very first acceptance speech ever at MTV. She was 17.
This morning, I heard more people say that this will overshadow, but I don't think so. I think, so even though Kanye obviously wasn't physically violent towards Taylor Swift, I think because she was a young, up-and-coming, frail, whatever, female singer, I think that had more of an impact on the people watching, and more people came to her defense. I think people will forget about the Will Smith and Chris Rock episode in a couple of weeks, but I think that Kanye and Taylor Swift lingered on for a good 10 years. We're still talking about it.
Yeah, but the world was such a smaller place back then. I mean, when Kanye West snatched the mic from Taylor Swift and it went viral, that meant Twitter and Facebook were posting about it, and a fraction of the amount of people were on Twitter. I mean, now it's like, this is just everywhere, and you've got people talking about this Will Smith thing that didn't have internet in 2009 in countries where, like, they've never heard of Will Smith, if you can believe it. I mean, maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe there is no place that's never heard of Will Smith. But yeah, it's, I mean, the world was much smaller back then, so, something being in the news meant like it was a much smaller pond. Now, the news cycle is moving so fast, and so I can see your point that maybe this won't be relevant.
But I don't even think that it's because news spreads whatever further and faster today. I just think that the Kanye on Taylor Swift, him coming from his position of power, he was quite an established rapper at the time, producer. She was an up-and-coming, female singer. I think people viewed that as like too much of a disparity for him to do what he did. Whereas Will Smith and Chris Rock, they're sort of peers, as successful. Well, they're both very successful in their careers. They're approximately the same age. They're probably friends, maybe even, or at least, socialize in the same circles. I think, I don't think.
Now, I could see people also feeling that, everyone wanted to defend poor Taylor Swift because she's a little white girl, and whereas nobody feels bad for Will Smith's black wife. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people would highlight, and I'm not sure they're wrong. Like, I really try to think about these things honestly, and
and that's the thing. We kind of focused on them too, but I guess I forgot that there is also Jada in this whole situation.
Yeah.
Questions?
Should we bring? Just shout it, or do you want to give him the mic, Rozzy?
Is someone's mic beeping? Is it mine?
Tom Morris here. Thanks, I'm sorry I'm quite a bit late. They may have been asked already, but the question that occurs to me is, to what extent is what's going on in big shows like this just a manifestation of just a broad coarsening of the culture? And to speak to a point that Ayn Rand would have understood, it shows you about the sense of life of everyone concerned, that you have an MC, a supposed comedian, whose idea of being funny is to rip into the people who are taking part in an event. We all remember Ricky Gervais a few years ago, and some of us, slightly guiltily, even laughed at it. But if someone's going to slap Chris Rock for what he said, I mean, Ricky Gervais is amazing the guy's even alive, given what he said to the assembled crowd there. Basically called them liars, hypocrites, child abusers, you name it. He just went into the full thing. So it just occurs to me that what the Oscars manifest is just the increased grubbiness of what passes for showbiz, and the glamour of Hollywood is dead. I mean, he's put a fork in it, it's done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening in that comment. So yeah, when did, like, we went from a world where we grew up in, right, where like celebrity events are like everybody, not everybody, but many people dreamed of being a part of. Now it's like you might be afraid to even go to these events. You might get called out for something or disrespected in some way. So yeah, Ricky Gervais became like the insult comic of these award shows. Now, I guess as somebody who sort of likes to go over the line, or some would say dances on the grave of the line, I'm not opposed to like that type of humor, but is it appropriate for an event where people dress up and celebrate the achievement of producing multi-million-dollar projects? I don't think so. I think there's a time and place for all these things. I like Chris Rock in the 80s. He's just kind of basically standing there. You see these old clips. His audience is basically standing on the same level as him, just like a group of people standing around each other, and he needs to fight for their attention. Like late night comedy clubs is where the boundaries should be pushed, or on the internet, but doesn't need to be the Oscars.
What's the difference? Just because it's televised, or because the celebrities are in the audience? Doesn't it make it more fun that there's a roast? Because there's this like dichotomy between everyone's so polished and good looking, but then you have one funny guy on stage who's kind of calling them out for their faux pas.
Yeah, I mean, if this was like the Third Reich and these people were like seriously guilty and with blood on their hands, and they have this pretense of civilization, then yeah, I would love to send Chris Rock up there to call them out, and that's letting them off easy. But I don't think we live in such a horrible world that we need to disrupt everything. So. I mean, maybe a part of this is like growing up in a very religious environment where like some ceremonies should be kept wholesome. Like not everything should be an orgy of insults and a big food fight, right? So yeah, I mean, so people dress up and they're celebrating these enormous projects, these movies that are very difficult to produce. The actors, so watching Will Smith's acceptance speech, which was also his apology. I'm thinking I can't even begin to imagine what it's like acting in like a movie that ends up winning an Oscar. Just the amount of emotional bandwidth that takes, or really, I mean, just acting in general takes a lot of effort. But to do these Oscar-winning movies is just I mean, it's work, and it's like emotional work, which is like a serious achievement. So, yeah, I mean. I'm not particularly a big fan of the way Ricky Gervais hosts the Oscars or the Golden Globes or whatever he does. Chris Rock I've always liked, more a fan of his stand-up than what he does at the Oscars, but yeah. But I think I see the questioner's point, which is it's like, why is this everywhere now? It's like we just can't wait to knock things down.
Yeah.
Marilyn, the Super Chat Queen, everybody. Can we please... The microphone on.
Oh, I didn't press the button. All right. Does anybody care what Jada Pinkett Smith thinks about all this? Does she get to have an opinion?
No. Next question. No. The question was, because I don't think the microphone works, does anyone care what Jada Pinkett Smith thinks about this?
Yeah, I think they do. I don't think we've had an official statement from her because she hadn't had an opportunity to come out on stage. I mean, we've heard Will Smith's side. Chris Rock sort of apologized already on stage after it happened. I think he did feel uncomfortable. I don't know if he felt remorseful or not, but he played it cool and he continued the ceremony, I think, in as dignified of a way as he could. I'm sure she will speak out, or maybe it's best that she doesn't, so as not to draw attention to the matter. She wasn't thrilled, definitely, at the joke. She didn't laugh at all. From what I've seen, I think that kind of spoke volumes for how she thinks about the subject. I don't know how she would feel, I mean, I can only speculate how she would feel about Will Smith going on stage and slapping Chris Rock. I'm pretty sure she'll stand behind him, of course, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess what would be an ideal to come of this? I would like to see Will Smith say, what I did was absolutely wrong. I got very angry, and I clearly need to work on that. I'm planning to talk to my therapist and to my family, and I thank you all for like helping me work on this, and I hope to win my friendship with Chris Rock back, or to whatever, to do whatever I can to show him that that's not me. So that would be the ideal, and for her, of course, to kind of stand by that and say, I know Will well enough to know that that's not the type of person he is, and I'm here to support. So I mean, I think that would be the ideal, rather than doubling down, which is kind of what he did in his speech in a weird way. Yeah, there's a lot we don't know about Jada Pinkett Smith. There's a lot I don't know that much about her. So I think a lot of people dislike her recently because of the controversy surrounding her alleged open marriage. It's not alleged, her admitted open marriage, in which she is the one to deviate, to stray, I guess. So a lot of people probably see her as like, wow, imagine having the world's greatest husband, America's favorite cousin, the Fresh Prince. He stays with you for 30 years, raises your kids with you, and then you just, start sleeping with the gardener or whoever the guy was. It's like a lot of people have been, angry with her, so probably a lot of people felt that way about her already. There's a lot we don't know about her. I never really knew that much about her. I know she sang in a heavy metal band back in the 2000s. That was pretty different. That was cool.
She dated Tupac, apparently.
She dated Tupac?
Yeah.
All right. Well, she is...
It's good Tupac wasn't at the Oscars, because he would have shot Chris Rock. No.
Ooh, wow. And I thought I was inappropriate. Imagine saying that about a dead American hero. I'm kidding. All right. Okay, we got... let's go...
We have a bunch of super chats left.
Oh dear. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, and let me also tell anybody who wants to send a super chat, we have about 20 minutes left for the show, but we also have a live audience who will be asking questions as well. So, if you want to send a super chat, you have a few more minutes. Allison says we can hear Robert just fine, LOL. Alejandro says, Rand commented on the guy who ran naked in the 70s as an example of nihilism. Don't you think that hosts have become the nihilists? Ricky Gervais.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of, it sort of seems that way at a certain point. It's like, why ruin a black tie event? I felt the same way about AOC's dress, Eat the Rich, and it's not just because of the message on it, but it's like, why are you making this night about that? It just seemed overly negative and disruptive. So I might surprise some of you that I'm so conservative in that way. But yeah, I mean, I don't like throwing around the words like nihilism. So obviously Ayn Rand, to say she's qualified to have an opinion is an enormous understatement. But I don't. I see a young guy running naked across the stage. There's just a lot I don't know about this. He could be drunk for the first time in his life. I mean, he could be, I don't know. I mean, I don't even want to say more than that. I try to avoid saying things like that's nihilism personified.
Zalmi says, this is all to set the stage for the government, to set the stage to pass laws against the most persecuted members of society, comedians.
Exactly, no. He's being funny.
Amy says, what is it? Amy, do you want to read that? Is there a typo in there?
What if it was Jada who slapped Chris?
It's not as bad in the eyes of people. I mean, would you see it as bad if a woman slaps a man?
Yes, I mean, force is force is force, but I think people would be more favorable.
But no.
Kinder.
Not only people, but like us. Like, would it really bother you as much? I mean, let's be honest. Like, it doesn't bother me as much. If a girl hits her boyfriend, I'm thinking, okay, maybe this relationship can be saved. And then that's the honest truth. But if a guy hits a girl, I am advising her to get away from him. So, like, is that something wrong with me? Is there something?
Well, I don't know. Maybe my initial rejoice at what Will Smith did speaks more about how I would deal in this situation. Maybe if someone, offended me and I would throw a punch, and people would be forgiving, that would be a good thing. And objectively, it shouldn't make a difference, right? But it probably would. And maybe it even would for me, if the context was the same. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't know. Maybe if I had to choose between the two, I would rather it was Jada who did it, because it's a direct joke at her.
Yeah. And if I want to see guys hitting girls, I just watch women's sports. All right, let's power through these super chats.
Yeah, so Jason Ryan says Smith's action wasn't about wokeness. His "keep my wife's name" shouting, which was almost worse than the slap, suggests just toxic gender roles at a time Will Smith is seen as publicly shamed in his marriage.
Yeah, we were kind of trying to explore how this relates to wokeness in some way, but I mean, yeah.
But does it foster... So yeah, him saying, "Don't say that about my wife," is that a good thing that he said or a bad thing?
From the perspective of the woke, I think it's like...
The question was from whose perspective? I didn't get it. From the non-woke.
I think from the perspective of the woke, what Will Smith did is not proper. Like, he should not be violent as a man, and he should not be speaking about his wife as if, like, it's his property, right?
Okay, fine.
Bradley says, this was all about the preservation of his worth as a man in her eyes. Don't you think tribalism is fundamentally biological, i.e. gender roles?
That's a bit of a package deal, I think. So tribalism is not the same thing as a man wanting to protect his wife and children. So yeah, I think it's probably biological that every individual human has values that they care about, including people. And maybe it is biologically sort of ingrained that a man is more inclined to protect, like, from physical danger, whereas maybe a woman is more into nurturing and feeding. I mean, there's a lot I can't answer to that. I don't know if you're more knowledgeable about that. But definitely tribalism, that is a leap. That to me is pseudoscientific. It's lazy. And you need to suspend so much of what's self-evident, or so much of what is evident, to say that tribalism is ingrained. But maybe the questioner didn't mean it like I'm taking it. So I apologize to the speaker for yelling. See, that's how a man handles his anger.
I have nothing to add.
All right.
All right, there's a couple more, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. So George says, will women expect guys to fight for them now?
You know, some people probably see this as like masculinity's last stand, right?
Yeah. The non-woke would maybe welcome something like that, because it means that men can, in their eyes, men can finally start acting like what men should act like.
Yeah.
Defensive and strong and throwing punches, rightfully or wrongfully. Are women going to expect it? I mean, I wouldn't, any more so than I expect now. But yeah, we are talking about celebrity culture, Hollywood. This happened, I don't know, do they set the standard? Do the celebrities set a standard, or are they just responding to what the society is already feeling?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if I had paid closer attention to like what the reactionary right has been saying about all this, we could have done a full episode just about that, how the people who like Will Smith's action, how that's going to change the culture, or what that says about the culture. Yeah, I mean, I just want to jump back to the whole tribalism thing, because I mean, it's a really deep topic. Maybe I shouldn't have been so even as you know, aggressive as I was, because like maybe it is quote natural that like we are tribal, but that's when we're not using our rational faculty. So maybe that's kind of the default until we use reason. Anyway.
Atlas Spoke says, this is the death of comedy in the culture, killed by the brutal, mystical, and nihilistic emotionalism of wokeism, like Putin bitch-slapping Ukraine. And Lisa Van Dam says, precisely what I feared the moment I saw, precisely what I feared the moment I saw this was that people would say, yeah, shouldn't have smacked him, but we really don't like that kind of joke. No but. Full stop.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think this will be the end of comedy. I actually think a lot of people will come to Chris Rock's defense, and quite rightfully so. It might be the end of comedy at the Oscars because they're just going to want to play it safe. But I don't think that this will be the end of comedy. I actually think the opposite. It might stand a chance of surviving.
Yeah, I mean, if I was
against the woke culture.
If I was Chris Rock's manager, this would be like, you know, Christmas. I'd be so happy about what this is doing for his career. I mean, people that have never heard of Chris Rock now are going to be digging up his body of work, and his G.I. Jane joke will now live on forever. But in terms of, you know, comedy, I have a bit more of a bleak view of where comedy even stands today. I don't think it is killed from without. I think most comedians these days are pathetically not just afraid to push boundaries, but they're so greedy for mainstream respect or mainstream accolades. They want movie credits, they want, you know, YouTube views and all that, and they cheapen their product to cater to the lowest common denominator. So if you're a comedian concerned with woke culture or cancel culture, why don't you just take a look in the mirror and see what you've become?
Is there a G.I. Jane movie?
Oh, you've never seen G.I. Jane?
No.
Michelle Pfeiffer. She joins the Navy. She joins
So that's
the Navy
the first one.
or the Army. Yeah, that's the only one. G.I.
Now
Jane.
I'm thinking, are they going to film a G.I. Jane 2 with Jada Smith?
Demi
Demi
Moore,
Moore.
excuse me. I apologize. Yeah,
I thought
it
that was
Demi
Saving
Moore.
Private Ryan.
No, Saving Private Ryan is a totally different thing.
But that's Demi Moore. She shakes
No,
her
there's
head.
no women in Saving Private Ryan. All right, please quiet. We are going to wrap it up now. I just want to say there was a moment in G.I. Jane when she tells the commander, I don't want any special treatment, I just want to be treated like everybody else. And he says, well, I suppose if you were like everyone else, you wouldn't be making speeches about not being like everyone else, would you? What do you think of that?
Very
Do you have an opinion? I really, yeah, it's a bit of a, there's a lot happening there.
yeah.
Okay, we don't have time, I'm so sorry. Thank you all. We got, coming up next, we've got,
We do have a little bit of time.
oh, we do have time. All right, I guess
No, but
we
can
got
I
time.
Just before
Yes,
we go
Tom.
to Tom, one sec, before we go to Tom, don't you think they're now going to offer the role of G.I. Jane to Jada Smith?
Yeah.
And if she takes it, would that be a good move or a bad move?
I think it can bring us together, and that's a good thing.
Tom, please.
Yeah, so I click this, okay. So yeah, I echo Lisa's sentiment. I'm just wondering why we're so concerned with the content of what these comedians said or who's saying it and why, when I think, like, really isn't the biggest concern just, what does this say about our culture at large to be so permissive of this? Like, why wasn't Will just, like, kicked out of the Oscars entirely and had his, like, Oscar revoked for this? Like, that's what I would call for. Because, like, it is the initiation of force. Like, it's a fundamental thing you don't do.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I guess if this wasn't the Oscars and this happened on the street, could you get taken away for assault?
Yeah, I think if this was not Will Smith and it was not at the Oscars, there's a good chance he would, spend the night in jail. Or
Well, so the thing is, I mean, should context play a part? I mean, because we say context is everything all the time. Is context anything at this point? The fact that it's the Oscars, national television, no one's obviously going to take Will Smith to the police station.
Yeah.
But should
Clearly
they?
not.
Should they? Do we think
I mean,
that they
it's
should?
it's hard to handle these situations in the moment. What if someone right now came up here and slapped me? Not that I think anyone should, but Would anyone know how to handle that right away? Well, yeah, I think in that case, you would probably drag him out, I hope. But, you know, I mean, who knows how to handle that, right? It's like you're on the spot, you're trying to figure out, like, what's the right thing to do. It's, you know, it's not like they all had, like, an hour to plan on how they would handle it. Like, just, it happens. And I suppose they probably spoke to each other, like, what do we do now? And they just left it alone. They probably also knew that Will Smith was going to win later on. And maybe there was a lot happening behind the scenes. There's always a lot we don't know. Like, maybe they were telling Will Smith, you know, or whatever, like, people were saying, like, there needs to be an apology. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot we don't know. But, yeah, it's a tough situation to handle. It's too bad people need to handle these. You should be able to have the Oscars without worrying about something like this happening. That's just my opinion, though.
I agree with that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Yes?
Yeah. So I was wondering, instead of Chris Rock, if there was a woman comedian on the stage, and would Will Smith have reacted in the same way? Or are you trying to say that, I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts, but would he be able to control his emotions and not go to on stage, or would he have done the same thing? Would he have gone and slapped a woman? That would have been a bigger scandal of the planet. That would have gone even, I don't know what would happen then. So it's like, I mean, would he be able to contain himself and not get out of his seat and go on the stage? If it was a woman, but he was still seething with anger, like, what would he have done?
I don't think he would have gone and slapped a woman.
But then in that case, maybe it's not right that he slapped the guy either.
It's not right. I mean, it definitely
Yeah,
isn't.
exactly.
So I think he wouldn't have slapped a woman. I mean, again, this isn't like being, you know, a skeptic, but maybe I don't know why he thought that he could go slap Chris Rock, and whether there was any other underlying issues that they personally have with each other, whether they dislike each other or have had feuds in the past. Maybe that played to his frustration at the comment. I think maybe because it also came from a man towards his wife, he was less forgiving. Maybe if it was a female making a comment about another female. But again, I mean, we're bringing gender into this, but I think he probably would have been more forgiving.
Yeah.
Maybe Jada wouldn't, so who knows?
Maybe she would have gotten up there and slapped her.
She would have reacted.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I don't think she would, but
I think a female comedian named Tiffany Haddish told the press that she stands by Will Smith. She said, as a woman who was unprotected for a long time or something like that, I appreciate what Will did. So there's a female comedian. Not sure how that answers your question, though. It doesn't really.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah. So I joined the discussion a bit later, but I'm not sure if any of you mentioned the possibility of this scene to be staged. Because I rewatched it many times, and body language is a bit. I became suspicious of Will's body language, because before he was aware that he was being filmed, he's actually laughing at the joke. And afterwards, as time passes, as you also mentioned, it's really hard to win an Oscar. So he's a good actor, and he can actually show you emotions very believably. So it is possible that it is staged, because I think Jada has a TV show, Red Table Talk, and they are discussing very private things about themselves. And Will, on TV, he confronted Jada in cheating in the whole public. So I'm not sure if it's that big issue for him, because he himself confronted her, his wife.
That last part about that she cheated on him and they spoke about it, we did cover. He could still be lashing out and acting this way even with him having problems at home with his wife. That could, in some cases, probably fuel his frustration and cause him to act out. But in terms of it being staged, my thought is no. Like, someone who went this long being a class act and America's sweetheart would not now behave this way just as a stunt when he doesn't need it. Like his career does not need something like this when he's already, you know, the most successful guy on earth. But it is possible.
No.
Maybe Oscars need it, because this year the views were very reduced.
Maybe the Oscars need it.
I mean, I think that's a lot of skepticism there. Like, I think we should sometimes take unexpected and shocking things just at face value. People do act like that. It's very unusual, especially given the fact that the setting in which it happened. And again, this is, I don't know how true this is, but if this was stage, I don't think he would swear on television, well, because what time is the Oscars on? I think, yeah, but I think it's like it's considered like a family show. Kids could be watching. I think that if they would have staged this, his language would have been different. It wouldn't have been so profane.
Yeah, and I think Chris Rock's response was just, to me, sounded very confused. He's not a great actor, Chris. He's not really an actor at all. He just plays himself occasionally in some comedies. You ever see Head of State?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was genuinely like dumbfounded by everything, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, my money says no, but that's, you know, who knows? But I mean, I say who knows just because, like, maybe to Will Smith, this seemed like a funny thing to do. Like, he didn't realize it would shatter so many people's views of him. But, yeah. Razi?
Yeah, we have one last super chat. Jason Adams says, I've always seen Will Smith as zen, up there above this crap. Is he going to break bad all the way now, or is it one-off for him? If he gets a one-off pass, was this the best way for him to lose it?
I mean, what does it mean? Is he gonna like go all the way? Like, he's not gonna run through the streets of Los Angeles deranged, hitting people now. I don't, you know. I think this was a one-off. He's apologized. He's gonna have to apologize some more. He's gonna have to come up with some other excuse, maybe like what he did, kind of like playing it down, and he's gonna probably play it down even more. I think he's gonna come out of it alive. I don't think he'll get canceled. Again, he is America's sweetheart in many ways, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Chris Rock was trans, then there's a chance this could really hurt Will Smith's career, but I don't think it will. And yeah, did you see the Fresh Prince reunion on HBO like a year ago or something?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it now.
It's very moving. Little Ashley, the girl,
Yeah, she's all grown up.
she's very into like BLM and stuff like that. But there's a lot of truth in what she describes when she talks about like the history in America, about like what it meant for a sitcom to be breaking new grounds the way the Fresh Prince did. So it's a very emotionally filled reunion. They even got the original Vanessa, or Vivian, Aunt Viv, to come the first time that actress even met the later Aunt Vivian, the two actresses. Isn't that amazing?
That's sweet.
Yeah.
But you know, you mentioned the trans. Just want to, on that point, why would the audience treat it differently if it were a trans person?
I get
Any which way, female to male, male to female?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know which type of trans is the most protected group, if any. But I mean, but there is definitely like a hierarchy of oppression in the way people look at it. So if you're
a female, could Will Smith argue, well, I just sort of treated you the way a man treats a man?
Interesting. So if
it were a female.
Yeah, female to male, then Will Smith punches them, and he's like, well, you got what you wanted. That would be interesting. But what if Chris Rock transitioned into a woman? Now Will Smith is in serious trouble.
That's definitely.
Yeah. But then why do we see such a difference then? Right? Like why does it matter if a man hits a woman or vice versa when gender is so fluid and ever changing?
Gender is not
right?
fluid.
Is it so? It's kind of a stolen concept fallacy, if I can be so smart for a minute there. Like the reason we see it more wrong for a man to hit a woman is because men are just naturally much stronger and all of that. But if that doesn't even necessarily true anymore, then why does it matter if one hits the other? Okay, I think we're out of time. Rozzy, for Christ's sake. Hold on, we got a $2 super chat.
No, but we do have a comment, a non-super chat comment, but from Lisa Van Dam, so we should...
That we've got time for.
Whether or not the joke was appropriate is a conversation for another time. A conversation. And for another time.
Very true.
Thank you. With those closing words.
Yes, thank you all for being here. We will be here all week. And yes, you may applaud now. And coming up next, we've got Gina Gorlin and Tal Svani talking about happiness. It's going to be really cool, and I can't wait. So, yeah, again, we're going to be here all week, same time, doing the Daily Objective. And then this weekend, it's Ayn Rand Con. If you haven't registered yet, what are you waiting for? All right, thank you all. And thank you, Maria, by the way.
Thank you.
And goodbye.